Welcome back. Language of the Soul. Conversations on healing and growth. I'm Ben Umstead.
And I'm Martin Perkins. In chapter 1 of my book, titled Ascension Culture, I talk about the consequences in our world of human beings, in essence, abandoning their depths, abandoning their wisdom, abandoning their grounding for the sake of whatever ascending goal they have, whatever ambition they have. And as I look around, in particular, it's very much present in my being today. I'm just so aware of the dogma of the Ascension culture, the belief that's so ingrained in us from an early age, this belief that if we just keep grasping, we keep reaching for this goal in this, ambitious way without any connection with our depths, with our wisdom, that we'll get what we want. And it's very centered around, I'm going to get what I want if I just keep working as hard as I can. And it doesn't matter whether or not I'm taking care of myself. It doesn't matter whether or not I'm doing this with balance. What matters is I put in the hard work. And I've been listening as our political and social leaders keep pushing this, I would offer, false narrative that not that hard work is wrong, but that hard work to the point of abandoning oneself, abandoning what one needs, whether it be a healthy relationship to rest, a healthy relationship to being present, a healthy relationship to the foods, how we nourish ourselves, how we ground ourselves. And the very place that I start in chapter 1 is a quote from Lucas Said. What I share is, leave your dogma, your doubts and beliefs at the door. A completeness, never ending and all welcoming. I am one with the depths beyond the door. I share that quote because for me, and I would hope for an ever increasing audience, that there's the recognition that if I'm open, if I'm not attached to this very regimented, very, I would suggest, very dark expression of hard work, if it doesn't change, then what happens is anxiety as a form of dogma, anxiety, worry, frustration, deep sadness, they'll continue to run our collective world because working to exhaustion serves no one. An angel's advocate might say, well, that's how I cultivate the muscles of hard work. And I would offer the quality of the hard work matters far greater than the sheer volume of it. Work smart, work with presence, work with calling. And frankly, let go. Grieve this notion that the sheer volume of one's hard work is the measure of a life worth living, a life well lived. It's false at its very core because it's basically saying, abandon myself, abandon nourishing myself so that I can ascend. So I ascend to whatever goal it is, and in the end, what's left of me? I know this from personal experience. I spent a big chunk of my life living this ascension myth and feeling its inherent falseness over and over again, until I finally said to myself, focus on the foundation. Focus on being well rested, having the stillness and the presence of being, so that when I did step into the work of my life, the calling of my life, I did so with care. I did so well nourished, well rested, and effective to what the underlying goal is for me, which is to embody the work that I teach. And I would offer, if one can't embody these practices, at the end of the day, you might reach that ascended goal, but what of you is left? If we're not going to grasp, in essence, abandon oneself, then what is the practice that allows us to do this while being firmly grounded in ourselves? For me and for my students and for my clients, it's Daoyin.
When you talk about Daoyin, you're really speaking to everything that we've talked about in the podcast up to this point, the on-off switch, the four forms of rest. When you talk about healing and growth, when I talk about healing and growth, those words are simple, everyday type words that are used for the sake of Daoyin. They are one and the same. So the words Dao and Yin separately may be familiar to our listeners. Combined like this, there may be a mystery to it. When you're talking about Dao Yin, when you're talking about healing and growth and really getting to the root of oneself, what do you mean when you say Dao Yin? Where does this term come from, and how are you utilizing it in a foundational practice?
So the word Tao is not a word that's easily defined. One way of describing it is borrowing your word from just a few moments ago. It is, in fact, best characterized as the great mystery. It is a mystery of an energetic flow that exists throughout the universe. It exists beyond the rational mind's attempt to explain, to understand. Because in essence, the moment you seek to explain it, you've already left that which is the Tao itself. So even as I'm speaking here in an attempt to explain it, even in the most open-ended of language, I've, in essence, stepped mentally away from the essence of the word itself and what it means in the world. It's an inner experience, and that's why the ancients referred to the practice as Dao Yin. Yin meaning yin and yang are the dance of forces between the doings and the beings of life. If there's an up, there's a down. If there's an inside, there's an outside, right? There's always these opposites. However, our culture largely looks upon yin and yang in exactly that context, as opposites. In truth, and in the practice of Dao Yin, yin and yang are complementary energetics. They dance with each other in their optimal form, and as a result express a relationship with the Tao. This relationship with the Tao means, in essence, letting go into the great mystery that is life. Being willing to let go of the idea that we have to understand something before we embark upon it, which is, in our very overthought world, there is a great deal of emphasis placed on, oh, well, I need to understand something before I embark upon it. Well, maybe. I would offer that understanding in its most essential form is born of knowledge, and knowledge is born of experience. So one takes the practice of dancing with yin and yang, allowing it to be expressed in your life in a complementary way. And in that way, we enter into a much deeper relationship with the Tao, right? And there's other words, right? There's the peoples of the Americas, and in particular, the area in and around what is today Mexico. The ancients of that world referred to it as the Nagual. In essence, the Nagual and the Tao are synonymous in the sense that we can know in our being the sense of a embodied relationship with the mystery that is life without any need or frankly, any ability to be able to explain it. It's simply we know. And the insistence And the sort of, to me, the amusing part about where science is and where, quantum physics is there's all these, scientists have discovered this or scientists have discovered that around the nature of energy. And the truth is, everything that's being so-called discovered has been in practice by practitioners of Daoyin and other similar practices for thousands of years. We need not understand something in order to embody its qualities. We can know it. And that notion of intuitive knowledge is a contrast, a huge contrast with what normally in our world intuition is characterized as. Unfortunately, intuition has largely been turned into a parlor trick where it's predictive and it's designed to, in essence, make people feel good about where they're at. It's addressing the doubt that most people dwell in, that cycling between belief and doubt.
Well, you bring up a good point between where belief in the ascension culture can come from, where we reside in doubt, right? This is where that belief stems from. It's by and large, in my opinion, feeding on that doubt and the fact that the I don't know doesn't have to exist within the doubt, the worry, the anxiety. The fact that the I don't know is that paradox that you're talking about, where being in the mystery of it, saying I am the mystery, then equates to an experience. And like you noted, knowledge that is gained, your own knowledge that's gained, your own experience that's gained. I think this is a really big thing for me in my practice with Daoyin. There have been times where I've gone, well, is there a doctrine here? Is this happening? And when that question comes up, I go, this is foundational. It's an energy-based practice. It's an energy-based experience. We live in a universe of energy. We are energy. And each of our energy has a uniqueness. It must be honored and expressed. So there is a foundation of rest. There is a foundation of breathing and of practice of cultivating that knowledge. But because you're doing it as an individual, it doesn't fall into the same kind of patterns of a doctrine, of a dogma, of a rigidity, because you're in concert with yourself. You bring up the yin and yang dance and what you're talking about with science, of course, is mirroring that. The yin and yang dance is particles, atoms, the stuff that we're made of, communicating with each other, asking each other the question, the only question, really, in a lot of ways, of do I exist? Yes, I exist, is the answer. And people are really uncomfortable with that. Doubt is very much a driver. Anxiety is very much a driver. I wanted to get a sense of where you think that intersection of belief really latching on to doubt came from.
The demarcation point of the Ascension culture came when we took the notion of what we know as God in our culture and we placed that outside of ourselves, right? When we were in earth-based faiths of many kinds, we were part of it. We weren't separate from. The Ascension culture, in essence, in its aspiration to be at the top, it placed everything else below, including the rest of the world. And that's how we've brought, in essence, the world to its knees. Because our needs were always going to supersede the needs of the world around us. And we've gotten it to the point now where we've literally brought the planet itself to its needs as it pertains in particular to our needs. Because the truth is, the planet will continue, right? She will continue regardless of whether or not there's humans on this planet or not. And she will once again thrive. The question will really be, will there still be humans on the planet at that point? I don't know.
And that's it. You're saying I don't know from a genuine place of the mystery, right?
It's not a place of doubt. It's a place of there are so many things that can still play out. There are so many possibilities, and there are changes. They're happening. And I wanted to kind of address something else that you'd said earlier, which is belief and doubt can be seen as expressions of yin and yang. And they're expressions of yin and yang from a state of opposition. Belief and doubt has become a highly oppositional framework. We see it in our geopolitics, we see it in our social fabric, as a world, as a nation, and the notion of a complementary relationship between belief and doubt, which is in essence
If
what
they're
faith
absent within
is,
oneself, if
right?
that's
Faith
not
is in
something that
essence
you are
belief and doubt outside of
feeling
its
and expressing
oppositional
from
framework.
within,
And
they're
it's the
going to be absent in the
recognition
larger world.
that at the foundation of faith lies a framework, a foundation, which is in essence built upon trust, forgiveness, and gratitude. It seems so simple, and yet look around your world and ask the question, what are the states of trust, forgiveness, and gratitude in the larger world? Yes, right. And I can experience their absence without them being, in other words, I can be an observer to the experience. I can be trustful and recognize the absence of trust in my world, not in my day to day with the people I have cultivated everyday relationships with, but I can recognize it. I can see the absence of trust. I can experience the struggles and lend what support I can offer without at the same time seeking to make anyone else different than they are, right? I can practice. My practice is of trust, forgiveness, and gratitude. And in essence, I seek to meet people where they are.
This is really important and it resonates very deeply with me. And it's because it's an everyday experience. Just this morning, while I was on a walk, I was having a conversation with a friend who right now is just trying to make rent from odd jobs so they can keep their space. They have three cats. It's a really lovely space for the cats. There's green open space that just comes right out on the apartment's patio. And it's much better than anywhere else they can find in the area where they live. And at one point in the conversation, they said, I'm sorry for dragging you into this hurricane. And I said, it's my choice whether or not I'm going to be dragged into the hurricane or not. And that was the thing of going, I know where I am. I have empathy for my friend's situation and the fact that they wanted to speak with me and speak from a precarious place, honest, but precarious. Making that choice and recognizing that comes from my practice with Daoyin. You wrote in the book to initiate healing and growth processes outside the egoic mind's control. And you said that the union with the Tao is both an expression of practice and intention. So, in my engagement with my friend and where they are, which is a life altering moment, a big wave of anxiety and worry and frustration, I set my intention to be compassionate and to listen and to be playful and offer any ideas that came to mind because they asked that. Do you have any ideas? And I said, I'm taking my walk right now and I'm looking around at the world to see if anything kind of pops in there. And nothing did. But I knew that just the exchange that we were having was important. And for me, setting that intention to not get caught up in, as they put it, the hurricane was what I could do for myself from a place of forgiveness, trust, and gratitude for myself and also for my friend.
As you speak, I'm reminded of one of the key elements of Daoyin, which is the energetic breath practice and the recognition that what you're describing as a practice and as an intention to be with your friend, to show up in whatever form that moment may carry you to, and to recognize that, let's say, for instance, rather than you embodying empathy in that moment, you instead, having had whatever experience you may have prior to the conversation, you may have been impatient with them. It may have actually, when they said, I'm sorry that I'm carrying you into my hurricane. You could have said, yeah, I'm not really up for this today, right? And yet, the beauty of the practice, which foundationally lies in the notion that first and foremost, we practice the four forms of rest, and that one of the forms of rest is a stillness practice, that this kind of deep rest activates within us an ever deepening expression of the inner observer, and that at any given moment, there's a reset, that you can be impatient, and within the practice, you can choose through intention to shift that. In the absence of such a practice, such fluidity is extremely difficult to embody. If one is feeling impatience, it's very possible one might experience impatience for hours, days, weeks even, right? And yet within the practice, and that's why we call it a practice. The truth is, people who practice Daoyin experience impatience. This is not a panacea where we don't experience everything in life. We experience it, though, through the lens of the practice, if we embody it. And the lens of the practice allows us not to get stuck. So, of course, I experience anger, resentment, I experience worry, any of the feelings that any human being experiences. I just don't get stuck there. And with the practice, I move very fluidly from one state to another. And if I am, in fact, on a conversation with someone and experiencing myself as impatient, I can practice, I can set that intention. And the fluidity of the practice allows me to, in essence, through the breath, grieve my impatience. Allow the breath, through practice, to give it away. And what shows up as is someone who can hold a space for a dear friend, right?
It's grieving and giving it away and seeing that there's another opportunity there. In this instance, this morning in my life, I saw it as an opportunity to be present. Anything that comes up in that grieving process and letting that go is an opportunity to be present. The specifics of it are going to be mine, are going to be yours, and so on and so forth.
I do dedicate a chapter in the book focusing on exactly that. Are the branches of my mind tree? What are the branches of your mind tree? And how do we have a relationship with those thoughts, those feelings that populate all those many branches in such that rather than allowing the branches to define our life, we allow the foundation, we allow the trunk to be our reality. And that's the discernment that I offer when people, coming full circle back to the Ascension culture / myth, that if you're defining your life through whatever ascension goal you've set forth, you've abandoned the foundation of wisdom. And as a result, the many branches that defines the lives of most individuals become sources of great and unfortunately ongoing unnecessary suffering. This is, again, I want to be clear, I'm not saying don't go for it in life. Don't seek better. I'm saying seek better through a practice in life that allows us to focus more on how we're doing life than what we're doing in life. And in doing so, life becomes an expression of inner calling, because we've in essence allowed our wisdom center, our soul, whatever you want to call it, the God within, the Tao, Because the Tao doesn't just exist outside of oneself, it exists within us. To let go into that mystery, allow it to guide us, and to recognize that the soul really doesn't have any large attachment as to whether or not we ascend to whatever goal at hand. The soul cares deeply. Are you healing? Are you growing on this journey? Because in doing so, authentic expression of meaning finds its way into your day-to-day life.
That begins and nourishes at the root of oneself.
At the root of oneself.
So, with this incredible, beautiful, hilarious, funny, nourishing dance that we all are a part of, being a human being, our world, our interconnected, everything together world is truly the foundation of Daoyin. From being a person, body that breathes and moves and sits in stillness. It is an energy based meditation that we're talking about. It is being still. It is finding that inner silence. So I want to bring it back in that rooted sense to something that is in the book, Language of the Soul, Path of Simplicity. It's the opener for chapter 5, Dao Yin, and I quote, "Life's purpose lies at the nexus of surrender into the soul and the authentic expression of the will of the ego. It is a beautiful and fundamental paradox built upon the spaciousness of trust, forgiveness, gratitude, faith, personal truth, and love." If you like to listen to the book or read the book, you can go over to Martin's website, martinperkins.com, MartinPerkins, martinperkins.com. Check out the bookstore where you can get a paperback or where you can get an audiobook directly from Martin or on a lot of popular audiobook platforms. You can find other resources beyond the podcast, beyond the book. You can even take a look at the Language of the Soul course that is being offered. And that's where everything that we're talking about, everything that's generated in these conversations stems from. Martin, thank you so much for the conversation today. I think there was such a bountiful, lived in energy that got me very excited because we didn't have to say what the Tao was. We just had to kind of talk and share a bunch of different things and feel into it. And at the end of the day, wink, wink, that's the Tao.
Wink, wink. Thank you, Ben.